Several years ago, I had a fear of heights. And most people have fear of speaking, fear of dying, but I had a fear of heights. So I had a friend of mine, he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to go take flying lessons. I'm going to overcome my fear." And so I went out to the Rockingham Airport, and I started taking flying lessons with a boy. He was 19 years old, and I was 39 at the time. And that made me feel very apprehensive being in a cockpit with a guy that had all his ratings. But there were some things I had to learn to start with. Dr. Goodman here has the word lift. And then you got weight, then you got thrust, and then you got drag. Those are the four aerodynamics of flying. Lift has got to be greater than weight, and thrust has got to be greater than drag to get an airplane and take off. When you start reversing it and come into land, your weight is greater than your lift, and your drag is greater than your thrust. And it's called the Bernoulli principle, which is a thing with physics. Also, we've got, I think it's red over red, and the way you remember that, you have to fly an hour at night, you have to do 10 takeoff and 10 landings at night. Red over red, you're dead, because that means you're seeing both runway lights too low, and you don't live to go through it. And then you've got white over white, you fly all night, because you're too high coming into land, so you have to go back around and do a circle. And then you've got the last one here, when you're in the right glide slope, it's red over white, you're all right. I went over the first time I flew, and I was, you steer with your feet on the ground. You don't steer with your hands until you get ready to take off. And at 65 knots, you rotate. The runway's 150 foot wide, and it's 5,000 foot long. And my instructor says, "Well, whenever you're ready, take off." I said, "What do you mean, whenever I'm ready to take off?" He said, "Give it power and keep it on the runway." So I looked like I was drunk going down that yellow line. And finally, I got up in the air, and he said, "Not bad for the first time." And then we flew around a little bit that day, and he told me what to do and not bank it too much. And then it turns out that he said there's important things that you got to learn to do, and you got to do them consistently. And two things consistently with flying an airplane is taking off and landing. Those are the two critical things. And one thing that you can understand is that when you get ready to take off, you've got to make sure that your angle of attack is correct. If it's too great, you've got a problem. In other words, your weight is going to take place. You're not going to get off the ground. So I'm going through these lessons, and it turns out after so many lessons, I think 3 lessons, he comes to me and he says, "Today we're going to work on power on stalls." I said, "What is a power on stall?" He says, "Well, let me show you one, and then I want you to do the same thing." I said, "Okay." Now, my stomach's in knots. It's torn up every time I go to the airport, and I force myself to go to the airport. And it turns out we do what is called a clearing turn. It's 360 degrees, and you do a 360-degree turn. And basically what you're doing is you're checking for other traffic so you don't run into other airplanes. And then you get to the point, he says, "I want you to give carburetor head, give it full power, and I want you to pull that thing up as high as you can and pull back at the same time." Now, I've never done this before, so I'm thinking, okay, how's this work? And what happens is you lose lift on your wings, on your leading edge of your wing, and the plane falls. And one thing that you've got to do is lower your wing so that you can put lift back under that wing. It didn't take me long, and this is, guys, when I say these words here, I want y'all to flip your portable word wall. I want you to understand that you've got to have wind beneath your wings.